Aggressive driving is one of the most dangerous behaviors on the road. It often starts small. A driver is frustrated. Someone cuts them off. Traffic is moving slowly. They are running late. Another driver does something careless. And in that moment, emotion takes over. Instead of making safe decisions, the driver begins reacting with anger, impatience, or hostility. That is how aggressive driving begins. In this lesson, we will define aggressive driving, identify common aggressive behaviors, understand why it is dangerous, and discuss how to stay calm and in control behind the wheel. Because safe driving requires more than skill, it requires emotional discipline. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what aggressive driving is, identify behaviors that put drivers and others at risk, recognize the emotional triggers that lead to aggression, and apply safer strategies to stay calm and in control. What is aggressive driving? Aggressive driving is an unsafe driving behavior that is driven by anger, impatience, frustration, or hostility. It is not just driving fast. It is not just being in a hurry. Aggressive driving occurs when emotions affect judgment, leading drivers to behave in ways that threaten safety. The legal definition of aggressive driving is when a driver commits three moving violations at the same time. A driver may speed excessively, follow too closely, weave through traffic, refuse to yield, block another vehicle, honk aggressively, or make threatening gestures. Aggressive driving turns the road into a personal battle. But the road is not a place to win arguments. It is a place to make safe, legal, responsible decisions. Common examples of aggressive driving. Aggressive driving can take many forms. Some of the most common include speeding, especially when a driver is trying to make up time, tailgating, following too closely to pressure another driver, unsafe lane changes, weaving in and out of traffic without enough space, running red lights or stop signs because the driver is impatient, refusing to yield even when it is safer to let another vehicle go, blocking another driver from merging or changing lanes, using the horn in anger instead of warning, making rude or threatening gestures, and sometimes trying to teach another driver a lesson. That last one is especially dangerous. It is not your job to punish other drivers. Your job is to arrive safely. Why aggressive driving is so dangerous? Aggressive driving is dangerous because emotions change the way people think. When drivers become angry, they are more likely to take risks, ignore consequences, focus on the other driver instead of the road, misjudge distance and speed, and make impulsive decisions. Aggression narrows attention. Instead of scanning the roadway, the driver becomes focused on the conflict. That means they may miss braking vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcycles, changing traffic signals, or road hazards. Aggressive driving also creates escalation. One aggressive act can trigger another. And when two drivers react emotionally, the danger increases quickly. That is how minor frustration can turn into a serious crash or even a criminal incident. Aggressive driving versus road rage. It is important to understand the difference between aggressive driving and road rage. Aggressive driving usually involves unsafe driving behavior. Examples include speeding, tailgating, unsafe passing, blocking, or refusing to yield. Road rage is more serious. Road rage involves violent, threatening, or criminal behavior. This may include intentionally trying to hit another vehicle, forcing someone off the road, getting out of the vehicle to confront another driver, threatening someone, assault, or using a weapon. Aggressive driving is already dangerous, but if it escalates into road rage, the consequences can become severe, legally, financially, and personally. The safest response is always to disengage early. Common triggers. Aggressive driving usually starts before the behavior becomes bad. It starts with a trigger. Common triggers include running late, heavy traffic, stress from work, finances, or family, fatigue or poor sleep, feeling disrespected by another driver, or carrying anger into the vehicle before the trip even begins. Sometimes the other driver is not the real problem. Sometimes the driver is already emotionally overloaded. That is why self-awareness matters. If you know what triggers you, you can interrupt the pattern before it becomes dangerous. Signs you may be driving aggressively. Some drivers do not realize when they have crossed the line into aggressive driving. Watch for warning signs like talking angrily to other drivers, even inside your own car, following too closely, changing lanes repeatedly to get ahead, accelerating hard or braking sharply out of frustration, trying to block another vehicle, trying to get back at another driver, feeling the need to prove a point, or feeling like you need to win the interaction. If you notice these signs, that is your warning. Your emotions are beginning to drive the vehicle, and that is when you must reset. The consequences: aggressive driving has real consequences. It can lead to rear end crashes, side swipe crashes, intersection collisions, loss of control, injury, and in severe cases, death. It can also lead to citations, points on your driving record, higher insurance premiums, suspension or revocation risk, and if behavior becomes threatening or intentional, criminal charges. And beyond the legal consequences, aggressive driving damages something else: your judgment. Every time you justify aggressive behavior, you strengthen the habit. That is why it must be addressed early. How to stay calm? The best way to prevent aggressive driving is to create conditions that support calm decisions. Leave earlier. If you are always rushing, frustration will always be close behind. Expect delays. Traffic is normal. Mistakes by other drivers are normal. Construction, weather, and slowdowns are part of driving. Do not take bad driving personally. Someone cutting you off may be careless, but your response is still your responsibility. Create space. If another driver is acting aggressively, slow down and let them go. Breathe and reset. Relax your grip on the steering wheel. Drop your shoulders. Refocus on safety. And most importantly, let it go. You do not need the last word on the road. You need the safest outcome. What to do if someone else is aggressive. If another driver is behaving aggressively toward you, do not engage. Do not argue. Do not make gestures. Do not match their behavior. Avoid eye contact if possible. Increase the following distance. Let them pass if it is safe. Do not brake check them. Do not follow them after the incident. Do not drive home if you believe you are being followed. Instead, go to a public place or police station or call 911 if you feel threatened. The goal is not to prove a point. The goal is to stay safe, replacing aggression with discipline. A powerful way to break aggressive driving is to replace emotional thoughts with disciplined thoughts. Instead of thinking, they disrespected me, think, my job is to drive safely. Instead of, I'll show them, think, this is not worth my license, my money, or my life. Instead of, they need to learn a lesson, think, I am not law enforcement. I am responsible for my own vehicle. This mental shift is simple, but powerful. Safe drivers do not react to ego. They respond with discipline, personal accountability. Aggressive driving will not change unless you take ownership of it. Ask yourself honestly, what triggers me? What do I tend to do when I feel frustrated? Do I speed, tailgate, use my horn angrily, block people, make risky lane changes? Then ask, what safer response will I choose next time? That is where real driver improvement begins, not with excuses, but with awareness, ownership, and change. Key takeaway. Here is the key takeaway. Aggression is emotionally driven. Safe driving requires self-control. The road will test your patience. Other drivers will make mistakes. Traffic will frustrate you. But your responsibility stays the same. Stay calm, stay legal, stay focused, stay in control. Because one emotional moment can create consequences that last much longer than the frustration that caused it. Distracted driving is one of the most common and most underestimated dangerous driving behaviors. Many drivers think distraction means only texting while driving. But distraction is much broader than that. Any activity that takes your eyes, your hands, or your mind away from the task of driving can increase your crash risk. And the danger can happen fast. At just 55 miles per hour, a vehicle can travel the length of a football field in about 5 seconds. That means even a brief glance away from the road can become a serious hazard. In this lesson, we will define distracted driving, identify the 3 main types of distraction, explain why it is so dangerous, review Maryland's expectations for safe driving, and discuss practical strategies to avoid distraction before it leads to a crash. because on the road, a few seconds can change everything. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define distracted driving, identify the three major forms of distraction, recognize common risky behaviors, explain how distraction affects awareness and reaction time, and apply practical strategies to stay focused behind the wheel. Distracted driving is any activity that takes your attention away from driving. This can involve taking your eyes off the road, taking your hands off the wheel, or taking your mind off the task of driving. Safe driving requires constant attention. You are scanning traffic, checking mirrors, watching signals, monitoring speed, maintaining lane position, judging space, and preparing for unexpected hazards. When distraction interrupts that process, your ability to respond safely is reduced. And often, drivers do not realize how much risk they are creating until it is too late. The three types of distraction. There are three major types of distraction. Visual distraction means your eyes leave the road. Examples include looking at a phone, checking a message, reading a GPS screen, turning to look at passengers, or reaching for something that draws your attention away from traffic. Manual distraction means one or both hands leave the wheel. Examples include holding a phone, eating, drinking, adjusting controls, reaching into a bag, or handling personal items. Cognitive distraction means your mind is not fully focused on driving. Examples include emotional conversations, daydreaming, intense stress, arguments, or mentally rehearsing other problems instead of paying attention to the road. Many dangerous distractions involve more than one type at the same time. Texting, for example, is visual, manual, and cognitive. That makes it especially dangerous. Common examples of distraction. Distraction can come from many everyday behaviors. Some of the most common include texting or reading messages, dialing or scrolling on a phone, programming navigation while the vehicle is moving, eating or drinking, adjusting the radio, playlist, or climate controls, turning around to talk to passengers, grooming in the vehicle, reaching for items on the floor or seat, or handling children or pets while driving. Many of these behaviors feel minor, but on the road, even small distractions can create serious consequences. The road changes constantly. A driver who looks away for just a moment may miss a sudden stop, a pedestrian, a lane shift, a red light, a cyclist, or a vehicle entering from a side street. Why distraction is so dangerous? Distracted driving is dangerous because it weakens the exact skills you need to stay safe. When you are distracted, you are less able to notice changing traffic conditions, judge distance and speed accurately, respond quickly to hazards, maintain lane control, and make good decisions under pressure. A distracted driver may fail to see a stopped vehicle until it is too late. They may drift out of their lane. They may miss a sign, signal, or warning. They may not notice a child crossing, a cyclist beside them, or a driver braking ahead. Distraction steals time, and on the road, time is often the difference between a close call and a crash. Phone use, the most common high-risk distraction. Among all distractions, mobile phone use is one of the most dangerous and most common. Why? Because it often combines all three types of distraction at once. Looking at the screen takes your eyes off the road. Holding or handling the device takes your hands off the wheel. Reading, typing, or thinking about the message takes your mind off driving. Even hands-free phone use can still create cognitive distraction. That means your eyes may be forward, but your brain is divided. A driver can be looking at the road and still fail to truly process what is happening. This is sometimes called inattention blindness. You may look, but not fully see. That is why the safest practice is to minimize phone interaction entirely while driving. Distraction is not just about phones. It is important not to reduce this lesson to phones alone. A driver can be dangerously distracted without touching a phone. A stressful argument with a passenger can divide attention. Trying to manage children in the back seat can pull your focus away from traffic. Eating while driving can take a hand off the wheel and shift your attention. Searching for a dropped item can pull your eyes down at the worst possible moment. Even daydreaming can be dangerous, and mental overload, worrying about money, work, conflict, or personal problems, can reduce your awareness without any visible behavior at all. Safe driving requires presence. You need to be mentally where the vehicle is. Real-world consequences. Distracted driving often leads to very predictable crash patterns. Rear-end crashes happen when a distracted driver fails to notice traffic slowing or stopping. Lane departure crashes happen when a driver drifts because their attention is elsewhere. Intersection crashes happen when a driver misses a red light, stop sign, or changing traffic flow. Pedestrian and cyclist crashes can happen because the distracted driver simply never noticed the vulnerable road user in time. These crashes are often described as preventable, and that word matters because many distraction-related crashes do not happen because the road was impossible. They happen because attention was interrupted. Maryland's safe driving expectation. In Maryland, drivers are expected to operate vehicles with care, attention, and responsibility. That means you are responsible for controlling distractions before they become dangerous. You are expected to remain alert, maintain proper control of the vehicle, obey traffic laws, and avoid behaviors that reduce your ability to drive safely. Whether the distraction is a phone, food, conversation, or mental overload, the responsibility remains the same. You are the driver, and your first duty is safe vehicle operation. How to prevent distracted driving. The best way to prevent distracted driving is to prepare before the vehicle moves. Set your GPS before you start driving. Choose your music, route, and climate settings before moving. Put the phone away. Use Do Not Disturb while driving or silence notifications. Secure loose items before the trip begins so they do not fall or tempt you to reach for them. Avoid eating while driving. If something needs your attention, pull over safely first. If a child, pet, phone call, message, or navigation issue becomes urgent, the safe response is not to multitask. The safe response is to stop when it is safe and handle it properly. Distraction and personal accountability. Real driver improvement requires honesty. Ask yourself, what distracts me most? Is it my phone, passengers, food, stress, running late? Then ask, when am I most tempted? In traffic, on familiar roads, at red lights, during long drives? Then ask the most important question. What system will I use to prevent it? Because relying on willpower alone is weak. Good systems are stronger than good intentions. That is how habits change. A simple safe driving rule. Here is a simple rule to remember. If it takes your eyes, your hands, or your mind away from driving, it can wait. The message can wait. The call can wait. The snack can wait. The dropped item can wait. The argument can wait. The playlist can wait. The safest drivers are not the ones who try to do everything at once. They are the ones who protect their attention, because attention is one of the most important safety tools a driver has. Key takeaway. Here is the key takeaway. Distraction steals attention. Attention saves lives. A few seconds may not feel like much, but on the road, a few seconds can mean a missed brake light, a missed pedestrian, a missed red light, or a missed chance to avoid a crash. The road deserves your full attention, every trip, every time. Drowsy driving. Many drivers know that alcohol and drugs can impair driving, but fewer drivers fully understand how dangerous fatigue can be. Drowsy driving is a serious risk. A tired driver may still be awake, but not fully alert. Reaction time slows, attention drops, judgment becomes weaker, and in some cases, a driver may even fall asleep for a few seconds without realizing it. Those few seconds can be enough to drift out of a lane, miss a red light, fail to brake, or strike another vehicle, pedestrian, or fixed object. In this lesson, we will explain what drowsy driving is, why it is dangerous, who is most at risk, warning signs to watch for, and the safest steps to prevent fatigue-related crashes. Because if your body is telling you it needs rest, the road is not the place to ignore that warning. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define drowsy driving, explain how fatigue affects awareness and reaction time, identify common warning signs, recognize when crash risk is highest, and take safe action before tiredness becomes a tragedy. What is drowsy driving? Drowsy driving means operating a vehicle while sleepy, fatigued, or not fully alert. It does not always mean a driver is fully asleep. Often, the danger begins before that point. A driver may feel heavy eyelids, yawn repeatedly, struggle to focus, miss signs or exits, drift in the lane, or forget the last few miles they drove. That means the brain is already losing alertness, and once alertness drops, safe driving becomes harder. You may still be moving the vehicle, but your ability to detect, decide, and respond is reduced. How fatigue impairs driving. Fatigue affects driving in many of the same ways as other forms of impairment. A tired driver may have slower reaction time, reduced attention, poor decision making, weaker lane control, and delayed responses to traffic changes. Fatigue also increases the risk of something called a microsleep. A microsleep is a brief, involuntary moment of sleep that may last only a few seconds. That may not sound serious, but at highway speed, a vehicle can travel a long distance in just a few seconds. During that time, the driver may not brake, steer properly, or notice a hazard at all. That is why drowsy driving is so dangerous. The driver may think, I'm still okay, but the body may already be shutting down attention. Why drowsy driving is often underestimated. One reason drowsy driving is so dangerous is that many drivers underestimate it. They tell themselves, I can make it. I'm almost home. I'll just roll down the window. I'll turn the music up. I'll drink some coffee and keep going. But these are not reliable safety strategies. Fresh air may make you feel slightly more awake for a short time. Loud music may stimulate you briefly. Coffee may help, but it does not work instantly, and it is not a substitute for rest. And once your body is deeply fatigued, the safest solution is not to push through. The safest solution is to stop driving. Who is most at risk? Certain drivers are at higher risk for drowsy driving. This includes people who did not get enough sleep, shift workers, drivers traveling long distances, people driving late at night or early in the morning, drivers taking medications that cause drowsiness, and people who are emotionally or mentally exhausted. Even a person who is not physically sleepy may be mentally fatigued enough to lose alertness. That is why you must consider the whole picture: how much you slept, how long you have been awake, what time of day it is, how long you have been driving, and whether you are taking anything that affects alertness. High risk times for drowsy driving. Drowsy driving risk is not random. It often increases during certain times and conditions. Risk is typically higher late at night, in the early morning hours, after a long or stressful day, after poor sleep, and during long, monotonous drives where the road environment becomes repetitive. Monotony matters. A long stretch of road with little stimulation can make fatigue worse. That is why some drivers begin drifting, missing exits, or losing awareness during highway driving, even when traffic is light. Low traffic does not always mean low risk. Sometimes it means fewer reminders to stay alert. Warning signs you should never ignore. Your body often gives warnings before a fatigue-related crash. Never ignore signs like repeated yawning, heavy eyelids, trouble keeping your eyes open, blurred vision, drifting within or out of your lane, missing signs, turns, or exits, hitting rumble strips, or not remembering the last few miles you drove. That last one is especially serious. If you cannot clearly remember recent moments of driving, your attention is already compromised. At that point, you should not continue hoping it will improve. You should treat it as a safety emergency. What not to do. When you become drowsy, there are some unsafe responses drivers often choose. Do not rely only on loud music, open windows, chewing gum, slapping your face, talking to yourself, or simply trying harder. And do not make the situation worse by speeding to get there faster. Speeding reduces your margin for error, and a tired driver already has less ability to react. The road is not the place to gamble with fatigue. The safest response. If you notice warning signs of drowsiness, the safest response is simple. Pull over safely. Do not wait until the next serious mistake. Do not keep promising yourself just a few more minutes. Stop in a safe location. Rest. If possible, switch drivers. If needed, take a short nap in a safe place. If you are on a long trip, plan rest breaks before fatigue becomes severe. And if you still feel tired after stopping, do not continue driving. Safety requires honesty, not wishful thinking, medication, and drowsy driving. Some drivers become drowsy not because of lack of sleep, but because of medication. This can include prescription drugs, over-the-counter cold or allergy medicines, sleep aids, muscle relaxers, or any medication that warns of drowsiness. If a label says may cause drowsiness or do not operate machinery, you must take that seriously. Driving is operating machinery. If a medication affects alertness, judgment, or coordination, it can make driving unsafe. Never assume that a legal medication is automatically safe for driving. Read the label, know the side effects, and if you are unsure, do not drive until you understand how it affects you. Prevention before the trip. The best way to prevent drowsy driving is to prepare before the trip starts. Get enough sleep. Do not treat sleep as optional if you plan to drive. Plan rest breaks during long trips. Avoid starting a long drive when you are already exhausted. Be cautious about late night or early morning driving if you know you are tired. Check medication labels. And most importantly, be honest. Do not pretend you are okay when your body is telling you otherwise. A tired driver is not proving strength. A tired driver is increasing risk. Personal accountability. Before driving, ask yourself a few simple but powerful questions. Did I get enough sleep? Am I fully alert right now? Am I taking anything that affects drowsiness or attention? If I begin to feel tired, am I willing to stop? These questions matter because fatigue often becomes dangerous when drivers ignore what they already know. Safe driving begins with honest self-checks. Key takeaway. Here is the key takeaway. If you are too tired to stay fully alert, you are too tired to drive safely. Fatigue is not a minor issue. It affects reaction time, awareness, judgment, and control. And the road does not forgive delayed attention. Do not wait until your body makes the decision for you. Make the safe decision first.
Back at 44 this morning on Today investigates a serious hazard facing young drivers that is often overlooked. NBC's senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers is in Bethesda, Maryland with details. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Meredith. We're talking about driving while tired. We've all done it, but experts say it's particularly dangerous for teens. Fatigue is a factor in at least 100,000 crashes every year, and most of those involve young drivers who get behind the wheel when they're drowsy and never make it home.
I sit and I replay that night over and over and over again, and I thought, I'm just so close to home. I can make it.
That night, Rusty Burris was 18 years old with a bright future. But driving home from his girlfriend's house, his life changed forever.
I knew I was tired, but I didn't really feel that I was that tired. And driving home, I got just a mile from home and fell asleep at the wheel.
In seconds, Rusty's car drifted off this country road and rolled over. The impact crushed his roof and his spine. Rusty would never walk again.
I've fallen asleep and crashed my car one time, and that's all it took.
Experts say every day, millions of teens are dangerously tired when they get behind the wheel. More than a third of teens say they drive drowsy on a regular basis, and more than half of all fatigue-related crashes involve drivers under 25.
It's a huge problem, and it's probably bigger now than it was in the past.
Tom Balkin is president of the National Sleep Foundation. He says adolescents go through changes in their circadian rhythms that make it nearly impossible for them to fall asleep before 11 p.m. Combine that with early morning classes, after-school jobs, and late-night socializing, and it's easy to see why teens are chronically sleep-deprived.
The average college student needs about 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep. Virtually none of them get that. In fact, they average 6 hours of sleep per night.
So how can fatigue affect their driving?
Today's show, how may I help you?
To find out, we set up an unscientific experiment with 3 Today Show interns, Patrick, Meredith, and Bryant, all college students who habitually drive after not much sleep.
Last summer, I was driving tired almost every day.
When it's final season, there's no sleep. That's when the drowsy driving starts to kick in.
For our experiment, we kept our kids up for an entire night, no naps or caffeine. Experts told us that would simulate the level of fatigue students typically suffer after a week of insufficient sleep.
You don't want to hit a cone.
Then we brought them here to the Skip Barber Driving School in Connecticut, where with safety instructors by their side, we put them through 2 road tests, a tight, twisty loop, and an emergency lane change.
We're testing today their ability to instantaneously react to an unexpected situation.
Hitting any cones would be the equivalent of a crash in the real world. The day before, all three had driven these courses wide awake and aced them.
I haven't hit any cones, and I think it's not that hard.
I feel pretty confident. Once you got the hang of it, it wasn't that bad.
But watch the difference when they're drowsy. Our kids swerve wildly through turns, hitting cone after cone after cone.
If that had been a real-world situation, he would have had a pretty violent crash.
Inside the car, you'd never know it. Even as they crash, our drowsy students remain slack-jawed and dazed. Patrick clearly is giddy. He almost seems drunk.
In many ways, driving drowsy is very much like driving drunk.
We showed the video to Tom Balkin, our sleep expert. He says drowsiness, like alcohol, can severely impair a driver's reflexes, judgment, and awareness. Should parents be as worried about kids driving when they're too tired as they are about them texting while driving or driving drunk?
Absolutely.
Especially, he says, on long, boring roads like the one where Rusty crashed. So we also tested our kids on this monotonous 2-mile track, each driving it for half an hour.
At first I thought I did okay. You know, I thought I was in control.
But their dead stares tell a different story. Balkin says these are signs of a dangerous condition called microsleeps, where your eyes stay open, but your brain is falling asleep.
And this is the kind of situation where anything unexpected actually could throw them.
Like these surprise cones. We put them up on our kids' final lap to simulate a stopped car or a person unexpectedly in their path. Before the test, we made sure an alert driver could easily stop in time. But watch our drowsy kids.
Whoa.
They're so disoriented, they barely hit the brakes.
Whoa, okay, that was fun. I just killed somebody, didn't I?
Imagine if that cone had been someone's pet or child.
After I sat there for a minute and realized what I did, that's a tough pill to swallow.
That was an eye-opener because that thing that you never know is going to happen that will just come out of nowhere. That's what you have to be prepared for. And if you're tired, you might not be.
A realization that came too late for Rusty Burris.
When you're tired, stop. Don't push it. Because even though you've only got a mile left, you could be throwing your entire life away trying to drive 1 more mile.
Now, sleep experts say parents should treat drowsy driving just like drunk driving. Tell your kid if he's tired to call you. You'll come pick him up. Or if he gets tired on a long drive, tell him to pull off the road, get some caffeine, and take a 20-minute nap. That should help revive him. Meredith?
All right, Lisa Myers, thank you very much.